there are going to be times in your life where other things are taking a major priority over your health and fitness goals, or that's normal. That's part of the process. And in fact, normalizing it is really, really important. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Sweat Simple podcast. My name is Brooks Herbis, and I'm an online fitness, nutrition, and mindset coach who's here to help you simplify and make sense out of the all too confusing fitness and nutrition industry. Let's be real, there's a lot of conflicting information online, and it can be hard to know what's legit and who to trust. In every episode, I'll be sharing the science and psychology behind health, fitness, and long-lasting behavior change. But I'll also be sharing real-life practical application, because all of the best info in the world only matters if you can actually apply it to your real life. So grab a coffee, water, glass of wine, or lace up your walking shoes, and let's dive in. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to the Sweat Simple podcast. I don't know if anyone remembers a couple episodes ago where I almost recorded the whole thing with my microphone not plugged in. We almost just had a repeat of that, but happy to admit I realized it before we got started with the recording. So we are all good. Mic is plugged in and we're ready to go. And today we are here to talk about how to bounce back from a setback on your health and fitness journey without giving up. And I bet you that a lot of you can relate to this, like feeling like you are, and honestly, especially this time of year, if you're listening in real time, this weird period between Thanksgiving and, the winter holidays. Like, how many times can you feel like you're crushing your fitness goals, but then something happens? Maybe you have a really busy week at work. Maybe you are just feeling more stressed. Maybe you have a ton of social events that happen all at once. Maybe this is like a week-long period, or maybe it's even a month-long period, but something happens that makes it feel like there's been a big setback on your fitness journey. You can't be perfect with your plan. You're having a really hard time following through with your goals. And frankly, it feels like you might as well just give up. Like, if you can't be all in, what's the point of really trying? But you've probably noticed at this point that this constant cycle of stopping and starting every single time that you have some sort of setback, or every time that you can't be perfect, it's not working for your long-term consistency. And in fact, it's actually just really keeping you stuck. So over the course of these next 15, 20-ish minutes, I really want to help you get out of this cycle, to get out of this cycle of giving up as soon as you can't be perfect, of feeling like after every setback, it's really hard to get back on the horse. So the first thing that you really need to do when it comes to, looking at these setbacks is reframe it. It's not if these setbacks are going to happen, it's likely when. And that's the first thing that you really need to get comfortable with when you're on a health and fitness journey. I am always super upfront with my one-on-one coaching clients. Setbacks will happen. Sometimes people think that you hire a coach and all of a sudden all of the really hard beliefs and everything that was hard about losing weight in the past just magically disappears. That's unfortunately not the case, because we are human, and things like stressful weeks, social events, all or nothing thinking, those are why we've felt stuck up to this point. So those things don't just disappear overnight. Setbacks will happen. But what I really do and help my clients with is, when these setbacks happen, navigate them differently than they would if they were on their own. So that's just something that I really want you to understand right out of the gate. Setbacks will happen. These are part of the process. It does not mean that you failed when something like this pops up. They are going to happen. There are going to be times in your life where other things are taking a major priority over your health and fitness goals, or there will be times where you mess up, or you didn't plan well, or frankly, some of your old all or nothing thinking or old self-limiting beliefs come up. That's normal. That's part of the process. And in fact, normalizing it, knowing that this is going to happen, knowing that this is part of the process is really, really important, because when you expect obstacles, you're so much better equipped to handle them. So that is the first reframe that I want you guys to really ingrain in your mindset. Is it's not that these setbacks might happen. It's not about preventing these setbacks. It's about what do we do when these setbacks happen. So instead of looking at these big setbacks as failure, I want you to instead accept that, hey, these are going to happen. I can expect them, and use them as learning opportunities in the future. So here's how to actually do that, because it's one thing to just understand, like, okay, yeah, setbacks are part of the process, but it's another to actually understand what do you do in those moments when those setbacks happens. That's what I really want to help you guys with. So the first thing to do is to really avoid the all or nothing thinking trap in the moment. So plan for what you can still do in these moments or longer period of time. This is really going to be dependent on what the setback actually is, but it might even help to set new goals, new expectations for yourself, and know that doing so isn't a step back. So let's say that you're entering a really stressful period of work, and maybe right now on your health and fitness journey, you're trying to lose fat, and you're trying to do so by tracking calories. So most of the time you're tracking calories, you're hitting 3 workouts a week, you're hitting a protein target, you're hitting a step goal. But every time you get stressed, that feels really overwhelming. So instead of doing one of those things, you tend to do none of those things. This is the part that I want you to start to change. So in that moment, when you're feeling really stressed, instead of ditching everything, I want to encourage you to think about what you could still do. When you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, what are the things and what are the actions that you can take that don't feel overwhelming, that are still making you or allowing you to get closer to your goal without feeling like yet another thing on your plate? So maybe for you, you know that walking is a big stress reliever and it feels really good to focus just on steps for the week. Or maybe you know that tracking calories is a lot of mental energy that you just don't have during really stressful weeks, but you know that you feel better when you have protein and veggies at most meals. So maybe during this really stressful time period, whether it's a week, whether it's a month, whether it's even longer, instead of focusing on calories and protein and steps and workouts, you're only focused on steps and hitting protein and veggie at most meals. And that's it. That is still action towards your goal. Just because you aren't doing all of these things that you often do, it doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean that you're not making progress. It just means that you've taken a step back to focus on some really key things that are going to allow you to continue to move forward, even when you can't do all of these things. So every bit of action that you're taking is a step forward towards your goals, even if it needs to look a little bit different than it has in the past. So that is the most important part of these setbacks, is to keep showing up for yourself in some capacity. That is the very first step. What can you still do? Even if you can't do all of the things, what can you still do so that you're starting to handle this differently than you have in the past? The other thing that we need to do after this setback happens, we need to start to learn from these setbacks. So start to look for patterns. This is the step that most people miss, and this is the step that I really dig in deep with my clients with, because the truth is that, like I said, these setbacks are part of the process. These setbacks are going to happen, and the reason is because they've happened before. But the reason that they continue to happen right now is because in the past, we haven't taken that time to reflect, to learn from this, to understand what's happening in those moments. So in order for these setbacks to start to happen less and less as time goes on, we need to do that reflection. We need to learn. We need to figure out, why are these setbacks happening? When are they happening? What can we start to change about our mindset, our current habits, so that these setbacks happen less and less as time goes on? So start to look for patterns. Are these usually happening, these big setbacks, are they happening when you're stressed, when you're feeling other high emotions, when you're extremely busy? Maybe they're even happening when you're around certain people or a certain time of month. These are the things that I want you to start reflecting on. What sort of things are you thinking and feeling in those moments? Do you notice that you tend to have a screw it, whatever moment when you're really stressed at work? Do you notice that these big setbacks tend to happen when you're with old friends who give into or encourage you to, have a lot of peer pressure? Like, what are the moments? What are you thinking? What are you feeling when these setbacks are happening? Once we can start to identify these patterns, once we can start to reflect on why and when these things are actually happening, then we're going to be a lot more consistent moving forward, because not only have we learned from this, not only are we becoming more aware of when these things are happening so that we can, start to dive a little bit deeper, we're also starting to come up with strategies and plans so that these things happen less and less frequently moving forward. So after we identify what we can still do in these moments, after we reflect on why these setbacks are happening, the other thing I want you guys to do is to have a plan B. Because knowing things won't go as planned and that there will be setbacks is really powerful. That's why it was the first thing I had to start with. Why? Because if we accept that these setbacks are part of the process, then it gives us an opportunity to make a plan B, especially if we can start to recognize the patterns around these setbacks. So, for instance, let's say that you often feel like you fall apart after a really busy workday. Like you have the best intentions for cooking a healthy meal, but you're just so tired at the end of the day that you don't want to cook the meal and you don't have the brain power to think of anything easier. So you just give up. You order pizza, you order the takeout, and all of a sudden that consistency that you were super proud of has just completely gone out the window. But what if instead you knew that this might happen because you know that you tend to feel really busy or really tired and brain dead after a long day of work, and because of that you had a plan B. So instead of ordering pizza at the end of the long day, you go to your go-to high protein, lower calorie meal. So maybe your plan A was to cook the nutrient dense meal, but your plan B was to get the green goddess salad from Panera or something along those lines. It's just that you've identified, like, this is your plan. If everything goes to plan, this is my plan A. This is what I really want to do. I really want to come home and cook the nutrient dense meal. But I also know that sometimes after really long work days, I don't feel like cooking that. So I have this plan B in place that still allows me to hit my calories, hit my protein, and feel better than I would if I was ordering pizza. This is truly the most important part. It's about not giving up completely when these setbacks happen. So finding a way to keep going in some capacity, that's how you're going to get out of this cycle of viewing every single setback as a failure and starting and stopping your fitness journey a million times. And having this plan B already in place can be really helpful, because instead of needing to use willpower, use self-control in the moments, you know immediately what you're falling back on. You have that plan B already in place, so it doesn't take a lot of extra brain power or whatever it might be to still continue taking action towards your goals. So to summarize, we need to recognize that setbacks are going to happen along the way, and even just by accepting that, we're going to be a lot more successful long term. So once you can do that, then we'll talk about how these setbacks can happen less and less as time goes on. The first thing to do is to avoid the all or nothing thinking trap when they do pop up. So even if we can't do all the things, is there still something that you can do? Most importantly is to learn from these setbacks and have a plan B in place so that the next time this pops up, because remember, it is going to pop up, you're more prepared and better likely to handle it. So at this point, I hope you guys are feeling a lot more equipped and ready to handle these setbacks moving forward. We're not completely giving up every time one of these things happens. Hopefully you're feeling a lot more likely to bounce back and really just continue on. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I always appreciate you being here and listening every week. If you haven't already, please be sure to leave a review, because I pick one person every single month to win a 60-minute power hour with me to do a full audit of your current fitness and nutrition routine. So leave that review. You immediately are then entered to win this, and I would love to chat with one of you a little bit more one-on-one. Next week, we're going to be talking all about the science of habit formation. So make sure you're tuning in, and I will chat with you guys then.